She was auctioned to pay her father's shame, her dignity stripped before a sea of masked strangers. Whispers haunted the room. No woman survives a full moon in the Wolf King's castle. But when the king claims her, she finds herself bound to an ancient prophecy. Her very blood, the key to a curse that tightens with each rising moon. As the final blood moon draws near, can she trust the man who holds her chains? Or is she only the next victim in his deadly game? But let me start from the beginning. A bell clanged, harsh and hollow, as Elara's bare feet touched the icy marble. Why were the candles pink? And why did they smell like burnt honey? She hadn't eaten since yesterday, but it was the heavy silver chain on her ankle that gnawed most. How did they expect her to run in that? The nobles howled and jeered, voices thick with wine. One called out a price before the bidding began. Elara kept her chin lifted, though her hands trembled in the frayed blue ribbon of her braid. She searched for a face she knew in the sea of masked strangers, but only found hunger and curiosity stitched into velvet and bone. A girl in a plain gray dress, Mira, always anxious, pressed a copper fox pin into Elara's palm as she passed. Her eyes darted to the guards.
Don't look at anyone, just the floor. Please, Elara, just breathe.
Elara squeezed the pin until it bit her skin, savoring pain as proof she was still her. The auctioneer's gavel cracked against the marble. Sharp as a break in bone, he rattled off numbers, debts, her father's shame like vendors' weights thrown out in front of the crowd.
Lot 49. Debts owed, 3,000 silver crowns, 1 manor forfeited, livestock gone. A pale blue gem for a night beast's king or a wolf's banquet. Who bids first?
Wine sloshed, laughter rose. Then the doors groaned open. A hush rippled through silken furs. Even the guard straightened. He strode in beneath gold candelabras, a giant in a cloak lined with wolf fur, footsteps echoing louder than any gavel. The mask covered half his face, but the slashing scar beneath one eye was unmistakable. The Wolf King. Elara's breath stilled. No one here had ever seen him up close, but every child in the kingdom had a nightmare stitched in his shape. He said nothing, and the crowded hall shrank back as if his shadow soaked up all the warmth. A lord in navy velvet dared to speak first.
Majesty, does the hunt tempt you? Or will you have her shipped to the mines, like the last batch?
The Wolf King did not glance his way. He mounted the steps toward Elara, cloak brushing the marble, boots halting inches from her bleeding toes. He looked at her, not through her, and she felt suddenly too visible, like skin peeled back. She tried to draw herself small, wishing the floor would swallow her.
Your Majesty, the bidding...
The king removed his mask, slow as a knife leaving a sheath. His eyes were gray, pale as snowmelt, and twice as cold. The scar caught the candlelight. Silence pressed against Elara's ears.
Stop the sale. By ancient right, she is mine.
Murmurs. A woman's glass shattered on stone. The auctioneer's throat bobbed.
You're right, Majesty. The court expects a bid.
The law predates your court. She comes with me. Now.
Mira gasped somewhere behind her. The crowd recoiled as the king produced iron shackles, black as midnight. He fastened them around Elara's wrists himself, hands steady, gaze fixed on hers. She found her voice, a thread woven from fear and stubbornness.
I'm not livestock. What gives you any right over me?
His mouth twitched, almost a smile, but not kind.
Ask your father what he sold before his debts began.
He tugged the chain gently, guiding her from the block. The jeers had curdled into silence, thick and watchful. The candles flickered blue as they passed. Elara's legs nearly buckled, but she forced each step, the copper fox pin still hidden in her fist. Behind them, the lords began to argue, louder, angrier, afraid. Why her? What did the king mean by ancient right? And what bargain could be so old that even the auctioneer feared it. Outside the hall, the king's grip tightened. The marble gave way to wet stone, and the scent of pine needles drifted through a grated window, sharp, real, and impossible. The shackles bit as the night swallowed them both. The shackles bit into Ilara's wrists as metal scraped stone. Every jolt from the guard's grip sent a hot spike up her arm. Her bare feet slapped against flagstones slick with melted wax. Why did the torches flicker blue instead of gold? And why did each empty corridor twist back on itself, as if the castle walls themselves were watching? 3 lefts, a rusted gate, then the hollow clang of an unseen bell. Ilara counted the turns silently, pulse racing. She looked for windows, only stained glass with impossible beasts and moons, no moonlight leaking through. A voice boomed ahead, and the guards straightened so sharply their armor creaked. King Fenris filled the entryway like a moving shadow given bones. Wolf fur cloak dragging, iron ring glinting, he stared through everyone. Even Lord Halden, who followed with an easy swagger and a sly smile, stepped just out of arm's reach.
Stop.
The guards halted at once. Fenris's gaze pinned Ilara, glacier gray, unreadable.
Bring her.
One word, and the guards hustled her forward. Ilara stumbled, nearly falling. The king's gloved hand shot out, catching her by the upper arm, his grip iron unyielding. He leaned in, cold breath brushing her ear.
Try to run again, and you'll regret it. You have 1 night to learn the rules.
Rules? What rules? Why only 1 night? Ilara's mind darted, but the king's voice trembled just for a syllable. When he said,
Moonrise.
He released her as if the contact burned. For a heartbeat, she saw something wounded behind his glare. Then the mask slammed down again. Lord Halden drifted closer, blue eyes amused.
She doesn't look like much trouble to me, unless you're frightened of tiny girls in chains.
The king's mouth tightened, but he ignored him. Ilara, breath ragged, twisted her wrists, testing the chains for any weakness. She caught Fenris watching, sharp, predatory. She forced her chin up, summoning dry humor through cracked lips.
Do your rules include dinner? Or is gnawing on iron a local custom?
Lord Halden smothered a laugh, but Fenris's bark of laughter was so sharp it startled her.
You'll eat, if you survive the night.
He gestured, and the guards marched her into a waiting carriage, its windows barred with silver, lined in black velvet that smelled of cedar and old secrets. The castle vanished behind as they rolled into the deeper dark, chains cold on her ankles, the king's reflection in the glass, watching, always watching. What happens at moonrise that no woman survives? The carriage hit a rut, jolting her forward so hard her shoulder nearly wrenched from the socket. Lord Halden's hand shot out, but it was the king's voice, low and raw, that froze her.
Don't open the window. Not even me.
By the time Ilara reached the castle's inner gates, numbness had crept up her bare feet and seeped into her calves. Every step echoed against the flagstones, too loud in the hush. The servants who gathered in the torchlit entry were pale and tight-lipped, eyes sliding away from her face like they were afraid to meet her gaze. One woman's hands trembled as she took Ilara's threadbare bundle, clutching it as if it might bite. She tried to swallow the metallic taste rising in her throat. The air inside the corridor was thick, not with dust, but with something older, something sour beneath the scent of burning tallow. She took in the marble seams, veined with dull silver, and the ancient wolf banners, swallowing what little moonlight leaked through the high windows. A girl about her age appeared from the gloom ahead. She was slight, with strawberry blonde hair piled messily and a silver streak glinting in the torchlight. Her gray eyes flickered toward Ilara, then darted warily to the guards before she whispered, chipper, but too quick.
You're to follow me. His Majesty wants you locked in the East Chamber. Don't stray. The doors, they've been known to close on their own.
Ilara forced her chin up, trying for indifference, but inside her skin itched with dread. The corridor stretched on, twisting through silent halls, where every step felt watched. Iron lanterns swung from chains overhead, casting bars of shadow across Mira's pale hands. Gripping her satchel, at the last turn, Mira stopped and lowered her voice, urgency threading through the words.
If you hear howling after dark, hide under the bed. Promise me. What? Are you serious?
Mira looked away, mouth pinched.
Just do it. Don't open the window. Don't answer if anyone knocks.
Elara snorted, more bravado than sense.
Great. So just pretend I'm not home and hope the wolves prefer someone else.
Mira almost smiled, but the fear in her eyes didn't fade.
It's not wolves. Not exactly.
Before Elara could press, Mira turned and knocked twice on a heavy oak door. The guard unlocked it with a key nearly the length of his hand, the squeal of the bolt raking at Elara's nerves. She stepped inside. The chamber was grand enough for a queen, but cold as a crypt, the windows barred, the stone floor unforgiving. She tried the latch, iron, unmoving, mocking her. The hearth was dead. Her breath fogged. Then she saw the bed, linen sheets, and on the pillow, a folded handkerchief, the fabric white except for a smear of brownish red. She reached for it, fingers tingling. The stain was tacky at the edges, half-dried, blood. Not old, not fresh, just enough to make the air pulse with threat. Her mind spun. Was it a warning? Had someone slept here before her and not left? If so, where were they now? Behind her, the key scraped again in the lock. She spun just in time to see the guard's gloved hand vanish from the handle. The door clanged shut, and Elara was alone. Except for the smell of blood, the moonlight caged behind iron, and the echo of Mira's words burning through her mind. She stared at the handkerchief. No crest, no initials, only the stain and a single silver hair tangled in the threads. A howl broke the silence, not from the forest, but somewhere inside the castle walls. And it was answered. Elara's wrists still burned where the iron had rubbed raw, but she kept her head high as the guards led her through the maze of corridors. The sound of her own bare feet on polished stone was sharp, a brittle clatter echoing into the gloom. She smelled roasted meat and spiced wine before she saw the doors, heavy, double, carved, with wolves circling a strange, full moon. Inside, the dining hall flickered with candlelight, shadows leaping over silver and glass. King Fenris sat alone at the head of the table, his black fur cloak draped over one shoulder. The seat across from him was empty. A single blue ribbon coiled beside the plate. He didn't look up as she entered. Not at first, but she felt his gaze land, cold as winter water.
Sit.
She didn't move. Her muscles ached, every instinct screaming to flee, but she said nothing. Instead, she reached for the chair, slow, making him watch her hands. The scent of food made her stomach twist. A whole roast pheasant steamed on the platter, bread dusted with salt, the wine shining ruby in the cut crystal. Elara's mouth filled with saliva, then dried at the memory of blood on her tongue. He poured himself wine, the gloved hands steady. He said nothing.
What happens at the next full moon?
He set the decanter down harder than he meant. The glass chimed. For a heartbeat, she thought he might shatter it.
Eat.
Answer my question. You bought me. You owe me at least that.
He stared at her, expression unreadable. The fire snapped behind him, but his face stayed in shadow. She waited, refusing to look away.
Obedience. Until the next full moon. That is all I require. If you value your life, you'll not pry further.
He picked up his fork, ate, not a word more. Elara's stomach gurgled, loud in the hush. She pushed her plate away.
Why are you refusing? Hunger is a poor weapon.
She folded her arms, letting him see the red marks circling her wrists, the skin scabbed and raw.
If you want me to eat, you eat first. All of it. You think I don't know the look of a poisoned banquet?
A muscle ticked in his jaw. His eyes flicked, for the briefest second, to her wrists as she reached for the wine. His gloved fingers curled. Knuckles whitening, he picked up the bread and tore off a piece, chewing slowly. She watched every bite, every swallow. The taste in her own mouth was dust, but she matched him piece for piece until the chill in her limbs eased. Halfway through, she caught him almost smiling, a fleeting twist at the corner of his mouth. Gone too fast to be sure. He wiped it away with a sip of wine. For a moment, there was nothing but the scrape of cutlery and the crackle of candles. Heat crept into her fingers, thawing the numb ache. Then the doors creaked. Elara flinched as a shadow slid into the doorway. Mira, eyes wide, clutching her satchel too tight. Not a servant's knock, not at this hour. Too quiet, too urgent. The king's gaze sharpened.
You were told to keep out.
Mira wet her lips, voice trembling.
There's someone outside, in the snow, watching the windows.
The king stood so abruptly, his chair scraped stone. Wine sloshed, staining the white cloth between them. Elara saw just before he turned away. The way his eyes lingered on the blood at her wrist, and the way his fists trembled. Not with anger, but something more dangerous. The candle nearest her flickered, guttered, and went out. The east corridors gleamed with pale dawn, cold air licking Elara's ankles as she crept past silent suites and shuttered windows. Her bare feet left smudges on the marble, nerves buzzing with every step. She'd woken before the bells, the taste of unease on her tongue, and the restlessness hadn't faded. The castle's hush pressed in, broken only by the echo of her own breath and the faint, strange scent of crushed violets. In the gallery, a tapestry drew her eye. Silver and indigo thread shimmered in its weave. A woman, regal and heartbreakingly familiar, stared out from the fabric. Blue eyes, far too like Elara's own. At her feet, a wolf lay curled, muzzle stained dark at the jaw. Elara's skin prickled. Something tugged at her, not memory, but warning. She reached a hand to trace the woman's face and winced. A sharp sting. Her finger had caught on something in the tapestry. A thread of thorns, real as bone, hidden in the velvet petals of an embroidered rose. Pain lanced her fingertip. Blood welled, bright and clean. She bent to wipe it on her dress, but froze. The first drop fell. It struck the white marble. Instead of red, it bloomed silver, a perfect droplet, cold and alien, gleaming like quicksilver. Elara's pulse stumbled. The air thickened, tasting of storm. A door slammed behind her. She spun, nearly slipping. King Fenris stood in the threshold, boots planted like he owned the world, wolf fur cloak heavy on his shoulders, his eyes glacier gray and wild, fixed on her bleeding hand. He crossed the chamber in 3 strides. Too close now, so close she could smell iron and pine on his breath.
What did you touch?
His voice was low, dangerous, not angry, but something worse, afraid. He seized her wrist, thumb rough on her skin.
It was the tapestry. There's a thorn in it. Look, I didn't...
He didn't look at her. His gaze locked on the marble floor, on the impossible silver bead.
Not again,
he whispered, but so quietly Elara barely caught it. Something desperate hid in his face, twisting the old scar pale.
What does that mean? My blood. Why is it...
Be silent.
He pressed his gloved palm over her finger, sharp and clumsy. The silver smear vanished into his black leather. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the pressure of his hand, the heat of his body, the thunder of her own confusion. He let go. The cold flowed back in.
Who is she? The woman in the tapestry.
King Fenris's lips thinned. He turned, setting himself between Elara and the tapestry, blocking her view as if he could erase what she'd seen.
You shouldn't wander. This castle bites.
He strode away, cloak snapping behind him, leaving Elara clutching her wounded hand. Relief came in strange form, a sense of wonder, somehow sharper. for the fear. She studied the tapestry again, tracing the blue-eyed woman's gaze, the sleeping wolf at her feet, the silver thread glinting beneath the embroidered moon. Behind her, the marble floor gleamed. The silver stain did not fade. The full moon rose silver and swollen behind the window's iron fretwork. Elara pressed her palm to the chilled glass, trying to see beyond her own reflection. Her veins flickered pale as moonlight beneath her skin, a faint, shifting gleam she could not scrub away. The castle's wards snapped awake. Gold light broke along the stone seams, sharp as broken glass. She flinched. The pressure in the room, suddenly too much. Distant howls twisted the air. Not animal, not quite human either. The sound knifed through her, raw and too close. Shuffling footsteps echoed past her locked door. The latch rattled once, twice, but did not open. Whoever was on the other side stayed silent, just their breath scraping the wood. Elara backed away, pulse skipping, searching for anything to use as a weapon. Nothing but a cracked basin and her own shaking hands. She hated how small she felt. From the high window, the courtyard glowed fever bright in the moonlight. There, a shadow staggered into view, tall and broad, wrapped in a cloak of pitch-black fur. Fenris. His head dropped, fists clenched at his sides. She saw his jaw twist, teeth catching his lower lip, as though he meant to bite through it. Then the change overtook him, brutal and unstoppable. He fell to his knees, fingers clawing at the flagstones. Bones distended. His body convulsed, limbs jerking at angles that made her want to look away. The wolf form tore through him, a grotesque silhouette, nothing like the tapestry's noble beast. The wards flared, gold racing the length of every arch. Fenris, or what he became, threw his head back and screamed, low and guttural, until the windows shook in their frames. Elara's own body rebelled. Her legs buckled, and she dropped hard onto the cold floor, arms wrapped tight around herself. Her skin tingled, then burned. Silver light flowed beneath the surface, tracing her veins with every feverish heartbeat. Her teeth chattered so violently she tasted blood. She stared at her hands, watched them tremble and shimmer. Footsteps, softer, hurried. The door creaked. Mira squeezed through, clutching a bundle to her chest.
Elara? Gods, you're freezing. Here.
Warmth pressed against her shoulders. A woolen shawl, Mira's nimble fingers tugging it close.
Why does it hurt? What's wrong with me?
Mira's eyes darted to the window, then to Elara's glowing veins. She swallowed hard.
The curse is starting. It always begins on the first full moon. I thought you had more time. Why silver?
The question scraped at her throat, sharp as the cold. Mira hesitated too long.
The last bride bled silver too. I tried to help her, but...
She stopped. Her fingers twisted around the copper fox pinned to her dress. Elara caught the tremor in her hands. A silence grew, thick as fog. From outside, an animal snarl ripped the night, so close it might have been right beneath her window. Elara's body jolted with a prickling surge. For a moment, she almost imagined the silver in her veins pulsing in time with the creature's howls. The pressure built, an itch she could not scratch, a hunger beneath her skin.
Mira, what aren't you telling me?
Mira's gaze slid away, lips pressed thin. She gathered her things, but her voice shook.
Don't ask tonight, please. I'll come back when it's safe.
Before Elara could speak, Mira slipped out, pulling the door tight behind her. The bolt screamed home, echoing in the stone. Moonlight painted shifting patterns on Elara's bare arms. The veins shimmered brighter, silver blooming outward, with every ragged breath. Below, the beast battered itself against the golden light, rage and agony tangled in its voice. Elara clamped her jaw, tasting iron, and tried not to scream when the silver began to crawl toward her heart. Elara's left ankle throbbed with every step, the silver chain biting deeper into skin already raw from last night's struggle. Her bare feet trailed faint marks across the moonlit marble as she followed King Fenris through echoing corridors. Somewhere far behind, Mira's anxious voice faded with the slam of a bolted door. In the silence, Elara tasted metal, fear, and the memory of blood. They stopped in a narrow chamber lined with leaded windows. The king's shadow stretched across the cracked flagstones, longer and darker than any man's had a right to be. Fenris turned, the wolf fur cloak shifting over his shoulders.
Sit.
She did, mostly to defy him by making a show of how little she cared for his command. He pulled off one glove, revealing a hand marked by old burns. He flexed his fingers, as if weighing what to say. The iron ring caught the moonlight.
My bloodline is cursed.
His voice was low, gravel dragged across stone. Elara tried not to flinch, but her foot twitched, jangling the chain.
Every wife dies. Third blood moon, always the same. She bleeds silver. The curse will take you too unless...
He looked at her, not through her, for once.
Unless you help me end it.
A rush of cold swept through the chamber. Elara's skin broke in goose flesh. She studied his face, scarred, hard, but the glacier eyes were rimmed red and shadowed deep, vulnerable. For a heartbeat, maybe that was the real danger.
So you want a bride and a curse breaker.
She forced a brittle laugh.
That'll cost double, Your Majesty. I want my freedom and my father's safe in writing.
For a moment, Fenris almost smiled. Almost.
Done. If you help me, I'll release you both. You have my word.
Your word of honor, or your word as a king who keeps brides in chains.
He tensed, jaw working.
Word as a man who's desperate.
They watched each other, the question hanging. Who was more trapped? A gust rattled the window panes, snapping Elara's focus. A faint scraping, the kind a dagger might make across stone, echoed beyond the far wall. She went still. Fenris's hand twitched toward the dagger at his hip.
You expecting company?
Only Halden has access after midnight. If it isn't him...
He didn't finish. The scraping grew louder, then stopped. Silence, but for Elara's pulse, drumming in her temple. She swallowed, voice steadying.
Suppose I believe you. How does one break a curse written in blood and silver?
He exhaled a ragged sound.
The castle keeps its secrets. You'll help me find them. The tapestry, the locked library. Start there. But know this, every failed attempt makes the curse hungrier.
No pressure then.
She pressed her palm to her ankle. Warm liquid, silver, not red, seeped between her fingers.
We do this my way, or not at all.
He nodded once. For the briefest instant, their eyes met in mutual recognition. Not allies, not yet, but bound together by something neither had chosen. A crash, glass shattering, heavy boots in the corridor. Elara shot to her feet, blood pounding in her ears. Lord Halden's voice, sharp as a blade.
Well, am I interrupting your little bargain?
The silver streaks on Elara's wrists were brighter this morning, braided like ice into her skin. She hid them under her sleeve as she entered the castle's forbidden library, but the cold tingling crawled up her arms with every step. The ancient door groaned behind her, closing out the world. And the king. She heard his footsteps anyway, heavy, deliberate. The library was vast, all dust and marble columns ribbed with veins of tarnished silver. The ceiling lost in shadows. Shelves soared high as city walls, packed with brittle books and scrolls bound in cracked leather. Somewhere above, Mira's voice echoed faintly, shelving, nervy, pretending she wasn't watching. Elara pressed her palm to a marble lion, willing the cold to numb her nerves. Time was slipping. The curse was moving. She needed answers. She started with the oldest ledgers, their pages spotted and brittle, tracing marriages and deaths back centuries. Each queen's name, crossed out, annotated in a different, desperate hand. Here and there, a silvery thumbprint stained the parchment. Waiting for a pattern to emerge, Elara squinted, scanning for any hint of escape.
You're not hunting alone.
Elara startled, the ledger nearly slipping from her grip. Fenris stood in the aisle's mouth, black cloak trailing, eyes as pale as the moon.
You said you wouldn't hover.
I said I'd let you search. Not that I would leave you to rot if the curse worsened.
He leaned against the shelf, arms crossed. At his nearness, the cold seemed to sharpen, not just from the curse, but from the awareness of him, watching her hands, her face.
If you're so worried, you could help me read these. Or is that beneath a wolf king's dignity?
A flicker of something, irritation, maybe respect, crossed his face.
Give me a stack. But if you start shivering, you'll stop.
They read in tense silence, the only sounds the flutter of pages and faint chiming from Mira's copper foxpin somewhere in the shelves. Elara's wrists prickled, silver veins inching higher, the words blurred. She blinked hard, refusing to let him see her falter. Relief, faint and absurd, arrived in the form of Mira's head popping up over a shelf.
Found anything horrible yet? Or just dust and dead people?
Elara grinned despite herself.
Both, but mostly dead people.
A draft flickered across her bare feet. Her skin tightened. Something was wrong with the shelf's shadow beside her. She set her hand against the wood and felt cool air whispering through a barely there seam. She pressed harder. The shelf shifted, reluctant as an old dog. A panel swung open, grinding stone on stone, revealing a space, black as midnight. Fenris tensed.
Don't.
But Elara was already crawling through. The air inside tasted of metal and old secrets. She dragged herself forward, heart racing. Thoughts jumbled between hope and dread. She found a leather-bound journal tucked behind a stack of brittle prayer books, its surface slick with dust. The name inside was written in a trembling hand. A queen's name, long erased from family trees. A sharp chill stabbed up her arms, doubling her over. Silver veins flashed up her wrists, bright as wire in a storm. Elara opened the journal. The first page began, "To whoever comes after, the curse grows stronger in the dark." She froze, breath scraping, Fenris's voice desperate at her back.
Elara, what's happening to your hands?
By the time Elara found the hidden hinge in the library's carved lion, her fingertips were tinged with silver. The numbness crept up past the first knuckle, a ghostly chill tracing her skin. She flexed her hands, watching the way the veins glimmered beneath the candlelight. The secret compartment opened with a reluctant whine. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, lay a battered leather journal. The initials, EV, were scored deep on the cover. Mira hovered at her side, visibly nervous, her fox-shaped pen catching the flicker of light.
Is that it? The Lost Bride's book?
Elara nodded and balanced the journal on her knees, ignoring the pins and needles sensation crawling up her fingers. She hesitated, glancing at the locked door, then opened to the first page. The ink was faded, but the words were sharp. Day 3, the king told another joke. I wept, not from the curse, from the punchline. Elara pressed her lips together, barely suppressing a laugh. Even trapped by magic and fate, some poor girl still had time to be bitter about a royal's sense of humor. Mira's breath trembled with relief.
If she could mock the king, maybe she survived worse than this.
A heavy step echoed outside. Elara's pulse jumped, but it was King Fenris, unmistakable, with his wolf fur cloak and cold, moonlit gaze. He didn't speak, only looked at the journal in her lap, jaw set. She read aloud, voice trembling as the numbness crept further. He says the curse is unbreakable, but I found a riddle in the old priest's notes. Only a bride's will, free and unforced, can unmake what was bound in blood before the last blood moon rises. Elara swallowed. There's a drawing, the curse spreading across her hand. It's happening to me, isn't it? A beat of silence. Fenris's expression flickered. Just for a moment, regret, raw and unguarded.
I'd undo it if I could. I swear it. You didn't choose this. None of them did.
His voice was rough, almost gentle. Elara stared, searching for the cruelty she'd expected. But he looked tired, the scar on his cheek catching the light. She turned the next page. More scribbled complaints about the king's groan-worthy puns and a sketch of a wolf in a party hat? Laughter slipped out before she could stop it.
If he tells the one about the moon and the cheese again, I'll throw myself into the moat. Did you actually tell that one?
He went still, then snorted. The sound startled even him.
It was a long winter. Jokes are in short supply when you're half cursed.
The tension cracked. For a moment, they weren't captor and captive, just two people trapped in the same storm, laughing in the dark. But the next page turned the mood. The bride's writing grew frantic. If I am not free by the blood moon, I will become silver. Heart, mind, all. I hear things at night. Someone else is reading my words. She looked up at Fenris.
Someone else. Who?
Before he could answer, Mira gasped, eyes wide, staring at the far corner where dust motes swirled and something glinted in the shadows.
Wait, there's another journal. There, beneath the floorboards.
A sharp, metallic click sounded behind the shelves. The silver in Elara's fingers burned suddenly, bright as lightning. The streaks of silver had climbed past Elara's elbows by the night of the blood moon ball. In the marble ballroom, everything glittered with uneasy grandeur. Carnelian banners dripped velvet from the rafters. Hundreds of candles burned low, making the air taste of wax and shadow. Court nobles moved like clockwork beneath the blood-red moonlight slanting through tall, arching windows. And Elara, forced into a threadbare blue dress, hair hastily braided to hide the worst of the silver, stood at the heart of it all, bare feet numb against ice-cold stone. King Fenris watched from his throne at the edge of the crowd. His face was carved from stone, glacier gray eyes, unreadable. She felt the weight of his gaze following her from suitor to suitor, sharper than the wolf fur cloak draped over his shoulders. He did not approach. Not once. Lord Halden swept toward her first. His gloved hand hovered, mock gallant.
Will you indulge me in a dance, my lady? I promise not to bite, unless invited.
Elara managed a thin, wry smile. She took his hand, pulse a discordant drum in her ears as they spun. Halden's grip tightened, his thumb pressing at her wrist, as if searching for something beneath her skin.
You're squeezing. I prefer my bones unbroken.
He grinned, blue eyes glittering with secrets.
Is it true then? Silver for blood. Some say the luck of the moon follows you. Shall we test it?
She tried to twist away, but the dance spun her straight into his chest. Halden's other hand flashed, a thin blade glinting between his fingers. For an instant, the orchestra's music faltered. Elara yanked her hand back, but too late. The blade sliced her palm, shallow but deliberate. The pain was oddly bright. Silver blood welled quick as mercury and dripped to the marble at her feet. Nobles gasped, drawing back in a rustle of silken fear. She pressed her fingers tight, but the stain had bloomed for all to see. A hush rippled outward. Fenris was already on his feet. His jaw clenched so hard Elara could see the scar, pull white along his cheek. If he noticed his claws sprouting beneath his gloves, he gave no sign. Halden's smile was thin as parchment.
A token for luck. You'll thank me when the curse is broken.
Touch her again, and you'll need luck to walk.
His voice lashed across the floor, silencing even the musicians. For a breathless moment, no one moved. Elara's knees threatened to buckle, vision tunneling. Relief came in the strangest form. Mira, darting from the crowd, pressing a linen scrap into Elara's bloody hand.
Hide it. Don't let them see how far it's gone.
Elara obeyed, feeling the silver streaks on her arms burn hotter with every stare. She caught Fenris's eyes. Something raw flickered there, gone in an instant. Then the music resumed, too loud, too frantic. The nobles whispered behind sleeves. Who wanted her blood? Was Halden after luck? Or something worse? Elara's hand throbbed. Beneath her skin, the curse crawled higher. No hiding it much longer. Tonight, they had not come to celebrate. They'd come to watch a spectacle, to see the cursed bride bleed beneath the blood moon. And somewhere among them, someone wanted her dead before dawn. But not everyone was watching the ballroom. Somebody had vanished from the revels and left behind, near the spilled silver blood on the marble, a single black feather. Silver threaded through Elara's hair, bright against the blue ribbon near her neck. She couldn't stop checking its spread each morning, as if worrying might slow the curse. Tonight, her shoulders prickled, a dull ache beneath the skin where silver roots burrowed deeper. She lay awake, listening to the wind flicking at the shutter. When a gentle knock came, she tensed, bracing for another demand from Lord Halden. Instead, King Fenris entered. His cloak dripped with rain, and his boots left damp prints on the stone.
You're awake.
He didn't ask. He just stood there, heavy with sleeplessness.
So are you.
He shut the door softly and crossed to sit beside her on the narrow bed. The air was thick with the scent of wet fur and candle wax. His face looked harsher in the lantern glow, the scar a dark slash. He noticed her glance linger on the scar.
You want to know how I got it?
Elara wanted to look away, but forced herself not to.
It's not just a battle wound, is it?
His jaw tensed as if he might deny it, but then he spoke, voice low.
No, my brother was king before me. The curse, it changed him. He tried to kill us all. I was the only one who could stop him. I left the mark myself, so I'd remember what I did.
The truth hung raw and heavy. Elara's fingers tightened around a fold in the blanket, knuckles stinging. She studied the rain crawling down the window, wishing she could say something that would matter. Instead, she offered the only gift she had, a story.
I once tried to rescue a fox from a trap. It bit my hand and ran off, and I howled so loudly the village thought I'd been murdered. My father told me, if you're going to meddle, wear gloves next time.
A soft, unguarded laugh escaped him.
I once tried to keep a wolf pup in my chambers. It ate half my bedding and escaped through a chimney. My nurse nearly quit.
Elara couldn't help herself. Laughter bubbled up, light and strange in the stillness. The warmth made the curse's ache recede. Fenris's hand hovered over hers, almost touching. Her skin tingled, anticipation crowding out fear. But he withdrew, clenching his hand as if burned by the thought. She stared at his reflection in the window, heart racing. The castle suddenly felt less hostile, until she remembered Mira's desperation earlier, the way Halden had watched the ballroom from the shadows.
If I tell you something I found in the bride's journal, do you swear not to use it against Mira?
He studied her, silent, then nodded, as she told him about the hastily scrawled name, Halden, circled in ink. She made her choice, to trust him, at least with this.
You certain it's not a trick?
If I'm wrong, you'll know soon enough. But if I'm right, you need to protect her. And me too, I suppose.
For the first time, she felt a shift. Elara was no longer just a pawn. She had power, and she was choosing how to use it. A surge of pain raced down her arm, sharper than before. The curse was quickening. She clenched her teeth, refusing to let fear win. She forced a smile and nodded at Fenris. Tomorrow, they would act together. But as she turned back to the window, the silver in her hair glinted against the glass, bright as a warning. The castle's cold had crept into Elara's throat by midnight, making her voice crackle with a strange sharpness whenever she grew angry. Each time she tried to swallow it down, the edge only grew. She pressed her palm to her neck, half expecting to feel a seam of stone beneath her skin. The lock on her door turned. Not the brisk, careless rattle of a guard, but a careful, drawn-out click. Elara tensed, knuckles white on the window ledge. Footsteps followed, too soft to belong to any soldier. The door eased open. Mira slipped through, her outline small and furtive, hair escaping its bun. And there, a thin streak as bright as frost in her hair. She closed the door with trembling fingers, not seeing Elara poised with a cracked saucer in hand.
Mira, what are you doing with that key?
Mira's eyes darted to the saucer. Her voice quavered.
I needed to talk to you. I'm not here to steal anything, I promise. Please.
Elara hesitated, then set the saucer down. Mira hugged her satchel to her chest, the copper fox pin catching the lamplight. A gust of wind pressed rain against the window, breaking the tension for a breath. Elara's gaze landed on Mira's hair again, and the frost-bright streak she hadn't noticed before.
Why are you sneaking around, Mira? And what are you hiding?
Mira's shoulders bunched, words tumbling out in a rush.
I'm not just a servant. My mother, she was the last bride, the one before you. I've been hiding who I am since I got here.
The world shifted beneath Elara, the old marble floor feeling suddenly unsteady. Her voice cracked, sharper than she meant.
You lied to me. All this time.
Mira's lip trembled. She stuffed her hands into the folds of her dress.
If Fenris found out, I don't know what he'd do. My mother vanished, and I'd barely escaped the same fate. I needed answers. I thought I could trust you, but...
Elara cut her off, fighting to keep her anger from splintering her words further.
Did you come here for me, or just to find her?
Mira's eyes filled with tears. She refused to let fall.
Both. I thought if I could understand what happened, maybe I could help you too. Or maybe I just wanted some kind of justice. I don't know anymore.
The sharpness in Elara's voice deepened, echoing off the marble walls. Mira flinched.
Show me what's in your bag.
Mira fumbled in her satchel, producing a crumpled scrap of pale lace, stained, old, nearly identical to the torn sleeve on Elara's own dress. Beneath it, a folded letter, sealed with the king's mark. Elara took the letter, her fingertips tingling where she touched the paper, and ran her thumb over the wax. Her mind spun with the implications.
You risked everything for this? What's in here? It's my mother's writing. I thought maybe it would tell me if he ever cared for her, or what really happened to any of us.
Anger and grief warred inside Elara, for Mira, for herself, for all the lost girls before them. Something in her chest broke open, not with rage, but something perilously close to pity. She drew a breath, voice steadier now, despite the scraping ache.
We read it together, but if Fenris comes, we say you found nothing, and after that, we stop hiding. Agreed?
Mira nodded, relief and fear mingling on her face. Elara reached for the letter's edge, ready to break the seal. But the sound of harsh voices down the corridor, Lord Halden's, sharp and urgent, followed by Fenris's unmistakable command, cut through the stone like a blade.
Get behind me, now.
Mira dove toward the wardrobe as the doorknob began to turn. Elara held the letter tight, heart stuttering as the world changed. No more secrets between them, and no way back to safety. Elara's lips glimmered silver in the torchlight, every syllable that left her mouth grating like gravel and glass. The stain had crept down her throat now. She could taste metal whenever she tried to swallow. Each breath scraped her insides raw. King Fenris's grip was iron on her wrist as he dragged her down the spiral stairs. She stumbled, knees weak, blood thrumming in her ears. The corridor smelled of dust and old rain, and something sharp like burnt coins. He hadn't said a word since the curse flared. Only his pace, ragged and desperate, betrayed him. A torch guttered as they passed. Elara pressed her free hand to her burning throat, fighting the urge to cough. She wanted to scream, couldn't. Words caught behind her teeth, thick and slow. Panic clawed up her spine. Would she speak only silver? Now? Would she forget how to be human? Minute by minute.
Stop. Fenris, I can't.
She tried, but her voice came out wrong. Half metal, half choked silence. He halted so suddenly she nearly crashed into his back. For the first time, she saw his hand shaking where he held the torch.
Don't stop now. We're almost there.
They reached the Forbidden Tower's base. The great iron door was open. Black marks scorched around the keyhole. She remembered the stories. The prince who went in and never came out. King Fenris's brother. Her knees wanted to buckle. Instead, she made herself meet his eyes.
Why here?
Her voice sounded like wind over coins. He flinched.
Because it's the only place left magic can't touch. Because
He broke off, jaw clenched, breathing hard. His mask, that cold, careful reserve, was coming apart. Something raw lived under the surface. A gust of air swept down the stairwell. Cold! It made her leg muscles jump. Her bare feet tingled on the ancient stone. He stared at the door, then back at her. His voice was ragged, lower than she'd ever heard.
Ilara, stay awake. If you fall now, I can't lose.
He stopped, throat working. For a moment, he looked less like a king and more like a man drowning. The room inside was all stone and silver veins, the walls streaked with dark stains. She smelled old blood, copper and salt. There was a battered cot in one corner, and on it, a blackened chain. Relief, sharp and bitter, made her laugh.
Well, at least the Decker matches my mood.
Her attempt at humor cracked and died in the echoing dark. It was all she had left, a joke with teeth. He dropped to his knees beside her. The torch clattered, rolling in a circle. He caught her chin in one gloved hand, forcing her to meet his eyes.
You're not fading. You're not. Say something, Ilara. Say my name.
She tried. The sound scraped out, rough and silvering at the edges.
Fenris.
He closed his eyes. When he opened them, the mask was gone. All that sharpness, all that pride, stripped away. What remained was terrified, hungry, unbearably human.
Stay with me, please. Just stay.
The word please landed between them like a dropped sword. She had never heard him plead. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to say everything. That she was afraid, that she hated being weak, that his hands, rough and desperate, felt like safety, but her lips were stiff, brittle with silver. All she managed was a noise, half laugh, half sob. He pressed his forehead to hers. His breath was ragged, warm against her cheek.
If you go, you take the last of me with you.
A bitter taste flooded her mouth, metal and salt. She felt herself slipping, not into darkness, but into a fever-bright panic, every sound too stark, every heartbeat pounding. She clung to his sleeve.
Tell me, what happened here, in this tower?
He drew back, face shuddered. For a heartbeat, he looked haunted.
You don't want to know.
I need to.
He hesitated. The torch hissed, throwing shadows that writhed along the walls. And then he looked at her, despair written plain as daylight.
It wasn't the curse that killed my brother. It was me.
The silver crept higher, burning her tongue. The world shrank to the sound of his breathing. And the taste of metal. Blood crept in crooked lines beneath Ilara's skin. By dusk, silver began to rise in her fingertips, filigree lightning mapping each knuckle. She pressed her chilled hands to the cracked glass, high in the western tower, and watched the blood moon climb, swollen, raw-edged, devouring the stars. King Fenris stood behind her. She felt him before she heard him. Heaviness in the air, breath like winter. His gloves were off, bare hands, scar puckered tight across his cheek, and a silence as brittle as frost. Down in the courtyard, Mira paced circles. She glanced up, eyes round with panic, the silver streak in her bun catching red moonlight. It was the hour of the curse. the hour Fenris had always warned her to dread. He spoke first, words ragged, as if torn from his throat.
Elara, it's time.
She didn't turn. Fear tasted metallic, the tang of old coins on her tongue.
You said you'd show me everything. No more riddles, no more lies.
He didn't answer. Boards creaked as he moved forward, close enough that the hair on her arms lifted. She wanted to step away, but her knees locked. Moonlight spilled through the tower window. It washed the ancient mural on the far wall in ghost blue. She saw it now, all of it. Lovers, one crowned, one barefoot hands reaching, faces twisted in grief. A river of silver paint ran between them, splitting their bodies apart. She stared, lungs aching.
Is that us?
Fenris's voice was unsteady, the mask slipping.
The original oath, centuries old. Each king, each bride, each moonrise, the same mistake.
What mistake?
He swallowed, jaw clenched.
They thought love was enough. They thought sacrifice would be simple.
He turned to the mural, tracing the painted wound with a trembling finger. There was writing at the base now, revealed by the moon. Old script, gold fading to ash. Elara moved closer, steps echoing. The words swam into focus.
Reading, only a willing offering of love may break the binding. One must lose all memory, every moment, every glance, or the curse remains.
The world tunneled. She felt herself sway. He nodded once. No bravado, no ruling voice. Just a man, hollowed out by too many winters. A beat of silence, then laughter, sharp, desperate, burst from her lips.
That's the joke? After all this, save the kingdom, save the king, but lose.
She broke off, swallowing tears. Fenris's hand hovered near her shoulder. He didn't touch her. He looked away, voice barely more than a growl.
You think I want this? I'd give anything to spare you. Anything but...
So, one of us drinks the poison. The other gets the memory of a ghost.
A flicker of movement. Mira at the door, wild-eyed.
No.
He whipped around, voice slicing. Mira shrank back, clutching her satchel like a shield.
It's not fair. She's already lost everything.
Elara shook her head, voice shaking.
No more bargains, Mira. This is what it costs.
Moonlight crept up the mural. The lovers' faces blurred, dissolving in liquid silver. Elara pressed her palm to the painted bride's hand. Cold stone. She thought of every moment. Stolen glances, bitter fights, Fenris's hand steadying her when her legs failed, the laugh he swore he didn't have. All of it balanced at the edge of oblivion. The price wasn't a crown. It wasn't freedom. It was memory. It was love itself, vanished. Time cracked.
I'll take it. You'll forget me. Live free.
She spun, fury breaking through the sorrow.
Don't you dare make that choice for me. You can't.
Beneath her skin, the silver lines flared, heat and cold colliding. She knew, suddenly, that someone had to choose, and that, in the next heartbeat, one of them would. The mural cracked, gold flaking, as the blood moon reached its zenith, and Elara's voice broke the silence.
Tell me, who do you want to forget? Me or you?
Silver crept across Elara's skin, swallowing the lines of her knuckles, pooling along her collarbones. By now, only her eyes remained untouched. Blue, defiant, refusing the moon's claim. Each breath stung, raw and metallic, as if her lungs fought to stay her own. The great hall was empty, save for Fenris and the echo of their steps on ancient marble. Blood moonlight spilled through the broken window, turning everything red and unreal. In that bleeding glow, nothing felt quite human anymore. His gloves were gone. Fenris's hands shook as he reached for her, fingers flexing, then curling back to fists.
You shouldn't be standing. You should have, damn it, Elara. You should have begged for help.
The words sounded harsh, but his voice broke in the middle. He looked less like a king than a man on the verge of losing everything.
I'm not begging, not tonight. The curse wants a price. I'll pay it.
Her voice scraped silver, brittle, edged, barely hers. She tried to smile, but it faltered as the silver crept higher up her neck.
No, not you. It was never meant for you.
He grabbed her shoulders, desperate, shaking her just once before his hands fell away. She could feel heat where he touched, a wild contrast to the icy metal under her skin.
Let it take me. It always should have. That's why the curse began, to punish my blood, not yours.
An ache twisted in her chest, sharper than the curse itself. She stared at his scar, the one that split his face in two halves. Man and monster, hope and regret.
Don't you dare pretend this is just about guilt.
Her hands trembled as she pressed them to his chest, feeling the frantic rhythm beneath. She wanted to say so much, to curse him, to thank him, to confess, but the words tangled, heavy as chains.
I stayed because of you. Not the castle, not the moon. You.
Tears streaked her cheeks. They glittered, catching the red moon, turning to silver before they even fell. He knelt, armor cracking against the marble. King no longer, his head bowed, eyes squeezed shut like someone praying or begging forgiveness.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You can hate me, Alara, but let me take it. I love you. I'd trade anything left in me to spare you this.
The world reeled. His words landed like a blow, honest, unvarnished, torn from somewhere he'd hidden all his life. Relief flickered in her, brief and bright. Then the pain surged, a wave of cold lightning. The silver reached the corners of her eyes. Her vision blurred, but she held to him, tighter, as if she could anchor herself with just her fingers.
You can't save me like that. If you die, the curse remains. Someone has to make the choice. Someone has to remember, and someone has to forget.
A beat, a breath. The world narrowed to the press of his forehead against hers, his breath shaking against her skin. His scent was cedar and fire, salt and regret.
Then choose me. Make me forget. Spare yourself.
No.
The word was a knife, clear and absolute. She felt the cost in her marrow, in the places the moon had not yet claimed.
I won't let you carry this alone. Not again. You'll remember. And I'll...
The rest broke apart. Her lips refused to form the words, to name the price, to say what she'd lose. A silence stretched, not comforting, but brittle. She squeezed his hand. Funny, she thought, how his fingers dwarfed hers. But she was steadier now.
Tell me something ridiculous. Something only I'd know.
I can't cook. Not even porridge. I burn water.
A strangled laugh shook her. The pain edged with warmth for a single, impossible moment.
Good. Remember that. And remember me how I am. Not this. Not silver and moonlight. Just Alara.
His eyes, gray, storm-tossed, clung to her as though he could drag her back by sheer will.
Don't go. Don't.
The silver spilled across her irises, sight fractured, the world exploding into shards of red, black, and blinding white. Somewhere, distantly, Mira's voice rose in a scream, but all Alara heard was the memory of Fenris's hand, rough and gentle, closing around hers. The silver finished its work, and Alara's last sight was of Fenris's face, shattered by something too fierce for words. Everything else, who would remember, who would forget, cracked apart as the blood moon burned overhead. Silver veins laced Alara's wrists, brighter than moonlight, raw against the raw pink of her skin. The sun hadn't yet cleared the towers. Her breathing came quick, white fog in the frigid hall. She pressed her palm to the rough marble and tried to steady herself. Someone was weeping, somewhere beyond the door, or maybe that was the wind. She counted her heartbeats, each one a hammer blow in her ribs. She was running out of time. The curse had crept higher overnight. For a moment, nothing moved but the shallow rise and fall of her chest. Then Mira's steps scuffed on the stone behind her.
Elara, please, you don't have to do this. There has to be another way.
Her voice broke. Elara shook her head, fierce.
He'll die if I don't. Or worse, stay like this forever. I can't watch that happen. I won't.
She tried for a laugh, but it sounded like a sob. Mira's hands fluttered at her sides. She glanced at Fenris, then back at Elara.
You could run. We both could. No one would know. He would. And so would I. Listen, Mira.
She gripped Mira's trembling fingers, leaned in until their foreheads nearly touched.
If I start to forget anything, anyone, you'll tell me who I was, even if I don't want to hear it. Promise?
Mira nodded, tears streaking down her cheeks. A single laugh escaped Elara. She wiped her nose on her sleeve.
You're terrible at lying, you know. Told you. I'm a disaster at secrets.
Fenris's voice, when it came, sounded stripped bare.
Enough.
He staggered toward them, every step leaving a smear of silver on the tiles. He reached for Elara, but hesitated, gloved hands trembling.
You do not owe me this. You never did. If there is a God, he'll.
There isn't. Or if there is, he stopped listening to us a long time ago.
She reached up and cupped his jaw. His stubble scraped her palm. For a moment, he closed his eyes.
You're afraid.
Of course I am, but not of you.
He opened his eyes. She saw herself reflected there, small, stubborn, more tired than she felt.
I claimed you because I had to. Your mother, she made the vow. Only your blood can break it. That's the debt I could never repay.
The words sliced through her, deeper than any knife, but the pain spiked, dizzying. Silver surged in her chest, burning through arteries, crowding out thought. She choked on air that tasted like tin and salt. She pressed her forehead to his. Their breaths mingled, ragged. She felt his hands grip her elbows, hard enough to bruise. She whispered the old words, the ones from the tapestry, the ones her mother had hidden in childhood lullabies.
Silver given, silver taken. Bind the wolf, unbind the maiden. My blood for yours, my life for.
Then agony, white, blinding. Silver rushed from her body into his. She saw it, a living thread burning along the lines of his jaw, into his mouth, behind his eyes. Fenris convulsed, choking. The curse fought to stay, clawed at her bones, dragged her to her knees. Her vision narrowed to a tunnel of light. Everything too loud. Mira's scream, the scrape of stone, Fenris's ragged gasp, her own heart beating faster, faster. She would die here. She knew it. She was ready. But death didn't come. Only a memory, and then even that slipped away, like smoke through her fingers. The world snapped back. She was collapsed against Fenris's chest, gasping, half blind. His arms locked around her, shaking. No more silver. Her skin was raw, but the lines had faded. Fenris's face was wet with sweat and tears, eyes shut tight, as if he could force the pain away by will alone. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came. Not her name, not his, not even why she was here.
Elara, look at me, please.
His voice cracked. Desperate, nothing left of the king. Just a man clawing at hope. She stared at him, confusion plain in the blue of her eyes. She didn't know who he was.
Elara?
It's over. The curse, it's broken. Elara, please, remember me.
She flinched from his touch, sudden and sharp.
Who?
Her voice sounded wrong, too soft, too lost. A new dawn spilled silver through the broken window. The cost of freedom hung thick as blood in the air. She stumbled to her feet, swaying. Mira reached for her, but Elara stepped back, eyes wild.
Don't touch me. I don't know you. I don't.
The silence rang, too loud, too final. Fenris watched her, devastation written across every sharp line. The curse was broken. Elara was gone. And in the first light of morning, the only question left was whether she would ever find her way back. Elara traced the rim of the marble fountain, the evening air cool against her bare feet, damp grass pressed between her toes, each step tugging at some memory just out of reach. The gardens were overgrown, wild with moonflowers and trailing silver ivy, but she hardly saw them. Her mind ached with emptiness and flashes, a wolf's silhouette in lamplight, the rasp of a scarred hand against her cheek, a half-remembered voice whispering her name. King Fenris had not come near since that night. She felt his presence sometimes. A door closing a moment before she entered, the acrid tang of iron and wood smoke in a deserted hallway. Each absence left her hollow, as if something vital had been taken and left no clear wound. She pressed her palm to her chest, feeling the faint pulse of something changed beneath her skin. The curse no longer burned, but she was not whole. Most days, she moved through the castle as a guest, not a bride or prisoner. Each title felt foreign. A sudden crunch on the gravel. Mira hurried up the path, her satchel swinging, the copper fox pin winking in the dusk.
You're braver than me, wandering out here. That willow looks like it might eat someone.
Mira's mouth quirked, but her hands fidgeted with the bag strap. She pulled out a battered blue journal and offered it, her voice shaking just a little.
I found this in the corridor after everything. You should have it.
Elara took the journal. The cover's texture sparked something sharp in her mind, a memory skittering away before she could grasp it. She eased onto the cold stone bench, Mira lingering close and restless. She opened to the marked page. Faded ink, her own handwriting, but strange. Scrawled lines. He never smiles, but his eyes soften in candlelight. Another page. A pressed sprig of heather. Her hands trembled.
I don't remember writing any of this.
Her throat tightened. Mira sat, shoulders tense, almost braced for a blow.
Maybe you don't have to remember everything. Maybe it'll come back if you stop chasing it.
A laugh startled out of Elara, twisted, brittle. She blinked at the page as her tears fell, bright and strange, silver and red, mingling and seeping into the ink. The sight made her chest twist. Not cursed, not cured, something else entirely. A kitchen bell rang in the distance. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand.
What if I can never be who I was before? What if that's gone?
Mira reached for her, small arms wrapping tight around her shoulders.
Some bonds don't care about curses or old magic. They just stay, even if you forget, even if you change.
Elara let herself lean into the hug. Warmth seeped into her, real and grounding. In that moment, she realized she was the only one who could choose what came next. The journal, the tears, the ache in her ribs, none of it dictated who she would be. She pulled away, sniffling, and managed a crooked smile.
Maybe I was stubborn before. Maybe I still am. I'm tired of walking in circles, waiting for memories to drag me back to myself.
She stood, holding the journal tight.
Mira, will you help me find him? Fenris. I need to see him, whether I remember or not.
Mira blinked, startled. Then her mouth curled into a real smile.
I thought you'd never ask.
They started toward the castle, shoes forgotten, skirts brushing against dew-wet grass. With every step, Elara felt the ache of loss, but also a flicker of hope. Stubborn as weeds, in winter, each slip of memory was hers to reclaim, or not, but the next moment, at least, would be hers by choice. She glanced down at the journal, cradled in her hand, and saw where her silver-red tears had formed a shape over the faded ink. A crescent, like a promise, or a scar. Behind her, candlelight flickered in a high window. A shadow crossed it, tall, broad-shouldered, uncertain whether to turn away or wait. Elara set her jaw, heart thumping raw and uneven. Tomorrow, she would face him. Tonight, she would write a new page, in her own words, for the first time since the breaking. As the garden filled with the scent of heather and rain, she opened the journal and pressed her thumb to the mark her tears had left. The print shone in the dusk, silver threaded with red, and the skin beneath tingled. The page beneath her thumb was blank, except for a single line in a hand she did not recall writing. "You are not lost." She looked up, breath caught between pain and hope, and realized for the first time that her story was not over. Not while her own hand still moved, and the words were still hers to claim. The castle was too quiet on the night of the new moon. Elara wandered its marble halls, her bare feet numb against the icy veins that threaded silver through the stone. The windows no longer bled moonlight. Now, only the darkness glimmered, broken by the faintest blue shimmer clinging to the high-arched ceiling. Every echo reminded her of what had been lost. Her memories felt like scattered papers, words gone soft, and edges too sharp to touch. She hesitated outside the great hall, uncertain what had drawn her here. The oak doors gaped open. Inside, the king stood alone at the heart of the vast room, wolf fur cloak hanging heavy on his shoulders, his silhouette sharper than any shadow cast by the dying fire. He faced at the moonless window, hands clasped behind his back. Elara watched him, searching for something familiar in the line of his scar or the tired slope of his posture. Her chest tightened. She should have been afraid. Instead, her hand lifted. She didn't know why. She stepped into the hall, breath catching at the faint metallic smell lingering from old wounds and burnt candle wax. Marble chilled her soles. The blue ribbon in her braid unraveled with each step. When she was close enough, she stopped. She meant to speak, but her voice snagged in her throat. He turned. The glacier gray of his eyes found her, ice and regret, but softened now by something hopeful, something wounded. Neither spoke. She reached for him, just fingertips, uncertain, brushing the black leather of his glove. At the touch, a rush of silver heat surged up her arm, startling enough that she almost pulled away. She didn't. His gaze widened. He flinched, then stilled, as if daring hope to breathe.
Do I know you?
Her voice came out in a whisper. The question felt as if it belonged to someone else. He let out a slow, unsteady breath. For a moment, he almost smiled.
You did. Maybe you still do.
He released her hand, but she caught his fingers through the glove, refusing to let go, though she couldn't remember why it mattered.
Why does it feel like lightning when I touch you?
His mouth twisted, caught between sorrow and relief.
Some bonds survive, even when memory does not.
A silence, softer than any embrace, settled between them. She noticed he had removed his iron ring, the skin beneath raw and pale. The fire snapped, sending a flare of warmth along the hall. She thought of the night she saw him bleed silver on the same marble. How, even then, she hadn't run. A laugh, shaky and unexpected, slipped from her lips.
You look terrible, you know.
He huffed, a sound almost like a wolf's low rumble.
And you look like the moon's lost child.
She squeezed his hand, feeling the thrum of a pulse she could almost remember.
What happens now?
He shook his head once.
Whatever you choose, the curse is broken for tonight. Tomorrow is yours.
She heard, in his words, a promise and a plea. The doors creaked behind them. A gust of cold air whipped through, carrying the scent of snow and something sharp. Wax, pine, the faint iron tang of old secrets. Mira hurried in, clutching a folded scrap of parchment. Her voice was high, almost breathless.
Elara, someone left this for you. It was at your door. I didn't touch the seal.
Mira held it out, her hand trembling. The seal, black wax stamped with a wolf's paw. Elara traded a glance with Fenris, a flicker of warning in his eyes. She cracked the seal, hands only slightly unsteady. The paper inside was stiff, the writing angular and dark. The next curse is already awake. No signature? Just the familiar paw print, pressed hard, as if to drive the message straight into her bones. As Alara looked up, the moonless window reflected not her own face, but the gleam of something watching from beyond the glass. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please remember to subscribe and give it a like. It helps me create more tales like this. Tell me in the comments which moment stuck with you most, or what you think the next curse could be. Until next time, stay curious and keep your lantern burning against the dark.